On this episode of A State of Control, we talk about Crestron's Masters Training, talk about the different levels of certification, as well as some of the takeaways that you didn't expect. All that and more on A State of Control.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
A State of Control.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by Infocom International. Infocom 2017, What Will You Create? Join them June 14th through the 16th in Orlando, Florida. Visit infocomshow.org for more information.
A State of Control, episode 34, Masters 2017, Professional Currency.
This is A State of Control.
Welcome to A State of Control, the AVNation podcast that touches on the control, programming, and automation areas of the audiovisual industry. My name is Steve Greenblatt. I'm your host. Thanks for joining us today. Today we're going to talk about an event that recently occurred in the industry, and it was a gathering of almost 800 certified programmers, and that event is the annual Crestron Masters Training. This was the US version that we're going to touch on, but there's also a international version held in Amsterdam, and that may also will be having a similar appeal. So with me to discuss this topic are some of the attendees, and who not only were in the audience in some of the sessions, but also helped to participate in delivering some of the content. But before we get to them, I'm going to start off with the usual Uncle Rich Fregosa. I'm sorry. Thanks for joining us today, Rich.
Oh, glad to be here. Mellow West Coast greetings. I'm actually going to be recording the podcast and heading out to the ballpark. So it's a pretty good day. It's a good doubleheader for me.
Can't beat that. Next is an old friend who has been a regular on the show as well. His name is Bernard Morgan from ICS Plus. Welcome, Bernard.
Hey, great to be here. Looking forward for the topic, and finally finished the office move. So getting ready to get settled back into normalcy here. Very nice. It takes a while to get caught up. And next is another regular on the show, Dave Hatz from AVI Systems. Welcome, Dave.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. And last but not least is the Director of Training at Crestron. His name is Jeff Ashachik, and Jeff was one of the hosts of the Crestron Masters. Welcome, Jeff. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Steve. Glad to be here.
Thanks. So, Crestron Masters is become a big deal, and I was one of the ones in attendance, and I was actually surprised to hear that it's about 15 years that it's been going on. Rich, I'll start with you. What makes Crestron Masters what it is? What makes this have the appeal that it does, and it makes people step away from their daily activity to attend?
I think the biggest thing is collaboration. I think it's in two parts of collaboration. One, collaboration with other programmers across the country and across the world. People that, I think Bernard had said it in one of the promos, which, it's the only time that you get to be in front of everybody and share information and put a name to a face, not only with your peers, but more importantly, it's one of the only times that pretty much the brain trust of Crestron is also there as well. And so it is a direct conduit to get information, not only information about what we have right now, but what's coming down the line. And so it allows for programmers who are at this level to not only be able to see, what they're doing with their projects now, but be able to forecast and build and move forwards and hone your craft. I mean, that's really more than anything else, is that it's tough when you're in the day-to-day. I mean, we're all in our office or on a site or someplace else, and it's a little bit of an isolated environment. And so this is a great time to be able to break out of that environment and get a lot of intense learning in a short amount of time. And that's really the biggest thing, is that we get caught up in our own environment and how we do things. And so it's good to be able to work in partnership with the manufacturer And to be able to say, okay, here's from the engineer, straight from their vows, or from people who are responsible who've done some very cool things, and saying, here we go. These are some very interesting ways that we've gotten to a result. And so, I mean, again, I can't say enough about being with people in an isolated profession.
So you're saying that we all are kind of stuck in our cubicles or in our home offices and don't want to talk to people otherwise.
The permanent headphone marks, right, from the plug-in headphones. I mean, we can all read. I mean, that's who we're pushing out to. This broadcast.
Very nice. So Jeff, Crestron obviously invests a lot in making this happen. From a content standpoint, how is Masters training evolved, and also how is some of the materials selected?
Well, Rich touched on a little bit of it, and more of what we've evolved into, where it was originally Addison was in front of saying, hey, this is something and this is how you do something. It evolved more to, hey, these guys know a lot. Let's give them the heads up of what's coming. How is it going to affect your world? Because you're doing the big jobs, the expensive ones, the famous places, and when we're doing stuff and we're coming out with something, whether it's something as big as DM or direct sockets or something with specific software or something, that you guys get the heads up on it. And so, that's what we've tried to evolve it into. And he also touched on it too, is that of bringing in, the product line managers, whether it's Twan or any of the other guys in there from engineering, to say, hearing it from them, how it was designed, why we designed it, getting all that information to you. Is what we've really tried to move Masters towards. As far as getting the material, it's an ongoing problem. We've already started. We already know it's now for next year, because we know stuff is coming out of, what's going to impact your world, what's going to impact your life that you need to know about on there. It could be something that, the idea is that we get it to you first. So, obviously, it's something shipping or something close like Mercury that, you get in with the engineers of what does it mean to you? How is it going to affect your life, and what's going to go on with it? As well as, just recently released products, that to make sure you know about it. And the big thing is the future of where we're going. And that's when you start hearing stuff from, Fred Bargetzi as to, this is what we're doing, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 2 years from now. This is what we're looking into, and how is it going to affect you and your business? Is it going to affect you and your business? Is it complete disruption, or what's going on? Steve, we were here long enough with, we first made that switch over to Ethernet-based products. This is stuff like you need to know of saying, hey, this is coming in, 3 months, 6 months. Don't wait for the marketing guy to tell you about it. You were hearing about it ahead of time and what it means and all. So that's what and that's why I think Masters has really taken off over the years, because people are seeing that value added. Or hopefully they're seeing that value added, and that's why it is. They just don't want the food or something. I don't know. And the
or is it to clarify what the marketing guy is telling you?
Or to clarify, yeah.
So Dave, you've been to many of these trainings. What do you look to get out of it in coming back year after year?
Well, it's interesting because, now we look at Masters as being, tied with certification, that there's that aspect of it. But when we started going to these, Bernardo, I'm sure I'll agree with this, it was all about continuing education. It was, it was getting that, all that new information. And after attending a couple of them, you start to realize that almost just as valuable as learning what Crestron has to present for us is the networking with our peers. It's getting to know and form relationships with, others who maybe are in the same geographic area, and, you consider your competitors on the business side. But when it comes to the programmers, we're a small community. We're not competing with each other. The sales guys are competing. And so forming those relationships with the people who are working sometimes with the same customers you are is great. But also it's forming relationships with, with other people around the industry. I've met, all of you guys through Masters Class. I've met, I've formed some of the best relationships and the people I respect the most in the industry through master's class. And it starts out just sitting next to someone at a table at lunch. And I look at one of the evenings that was, sort of a social hour. You look at on the surface, oh, okay, from 5 to 9 or whatever is drinks and food. Okay, that doesn't sound like anything exciting. But during that time, I think I had 4 or 5 conversations. The shortest one was probably 45 minutes. I had never talked to any of those people before, but they all turned into really meaningful conversations. And all of them about different topics. Sometimes it's about, the woes that we all face doing our job day to day. Sometimes it's about, hey, have you experienced this, or how do you approach this? And all those things are really almost intangible benefits to an event like Masters.
So, one of the things that I'm seeing too is that not only is it that community that is seeing each other at Masters, but they're also starting to continue that conversation on like Facebook groups and other types of social media, which is pretty neat.
Absolutely. I mean, I can tell you I've got a list of people who, when I get in a pinch on a job site and I can't figure something out, I've got a list of a few people that I'll call. And the majority of those are relationships I've formed at events, either at Masters or similar events around the industry. And, that comes back to helping my company's business out in the end, because I've got more lifelines. I've got more people who I trust and value their opinion. And I know are in the trenches with me, even if we don't talk more than a couple times a year.
I'll absolutely add to that I think one of the things that Masters brings is it's an unspoken that we've already all earned our stripes. We've all already been through it before, where we're not first year guys coming in asking, how do I turn this on? We're able to take all of the conversations and our experience and shorthand it. And it's the ability to be able to, and I think what Jeff was saying, which is let's get beyond just kind of the basics of this is how you do it. No, we're able to get into the why. Why was this created? Why was this approach taken? And it does a lot because again, we've all been in the field and we run into a problem and you're kind of banging your head on the desk over it. But if you understood why that piece was made the way it was, what was the reasoning behind it, it makes it a lot easier not only to address it, but also to design around it, to work your way through the problems before it becomes a problem. And that's huge. It's absolutely huge. And from a relationship standpoint, again, I collaborated. I'm in the niche of the niche. I'm on the resi side, and on top of that, I'm in the ultra, wackadoodle resi side, right? So I don't know what it's like to deploy, 700 classrooms, but I do know that in instances that I'll run across something that is similar, that somebody's taking an approach with the classrooms that I can apply to it. Or there's things that I brought from the resi side and the human element side that, I'm able to share with somebody, and they're like, oh, wow, yeah, that bridge, we're able to bridge. And exactly, I can pick up the phone. I've had done it several times where, we've gotten a call on something and a weird piece shows up that I've never worked with. I've got a dozen people that I can absolutely call and say, hey, look, I know you work with this. Tell me what's going on. I've had other people say, yeah, sure, I got this. I've got these pieces, it's in your Dropbox. There you go. And there is a whole lot of value, and it's professional currency is what you get from Masters.
So let's bring you in, Bernard, bring you into this conversation. As far as the takeaways that you have, and also when you're going to this, you're not only yourself, but you're also bringing a member of your team and probably shutting down a good amount of the productivity of your company. So you're probably looking to get a lot out of this. What's your angle on going to what makes this worthwhile? And when you leave, what do you try to say? I need to be able to accomplish X.
Well, I think the biggest thing is just the knowledge. There's so much can be said when you can sit down and have a conversation with, like what Jeff said, that now you can have a conversation not only with other people in the room that are your peers, but with the engineering team or the development team or the sales team and marketing team. Crestron brings a wealth of people there from different disciplines, and they say, this is why the box was made. This is how it's going to market. And then the conversations you have around that is just invaluable to understand better why this box does what it does. The interesting thing in our industry, and I think we can all agree, there's no one way to program something, right? There's so many ways to do the same thing in programming. So understanding how different people have accomplished the same things that we're trying to do and what experiences they had doing it is invaluable. Because at the end of the day, we're all going to get into a situation where you come into a project where you're trying to do something that something's not responding like you think it's going to be. And having, like Dave said, the resources, or just not the resources, the relationships you've built with people in the industry that have earned their stripes, like Rich said, that you can reach out to. It's invaluable, and that you build those bonds at Masters. That's not from the manufacturer side, but also people who are doing the same thing we're doing day in and day out.
So I'm going to change pace a little bit, and one of the things that I wanted to touch on is the different levels of certification, and one of the and we're proud to have Bernard and Dave on this podcast, because, and one of the reasons for having them is that they both recently achieved their diamond level certification. Jeff, can you give us a little bit of